to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd like to thank you all for coming today and acknowledge the government and our representatives. We have Representative Congressman Brian Fitzpatrick, State Senators Farry, and State Legislator Brian Monroe. Also all our town supervisors, town manager, first responders, the Veterans Association of Military Musicians, and the administrators of Andy Olds and Evan Scally that put this whole thing together here. Thank you. And also some of the veterans that serve in our committee would just like to quickly introduce themselves. And I have a bunch here. I have some scattered around. So my name is John Scala. I was in the U.S. Army, Spec 5.
Tom Matthews, Major General, 41 years of service.
Lieutenant Colonel Deanna Lorendi, U.S. Army, retired, 20 years of service.
Michael W. Tomlinson, U.S. Army Sergeant, 10 years retired.
Anthony Del Russo, U.S. Army Spec 4.
Chris Daly, United States Marine Corps, Captain, 23 years, retired.
Cool.
Eric Bell, U.S. Navy, Petty Officer First Class, 8 years.
And in the back, our modelier, I'll have to introduce him for Frank Williams, Lieutenant, United States Coast Guard. There we go. Veterans, families, friends, and honored guests. Today we honor Memorial Day, which was formerly known as Decoration Day. It is a day meant to honor and mourn the U.S. military personnel who died serving in the United States Armed Forces. It originated during the American Civil War when citizens placed flowers on graves of those who had been killed in action. After World War I, it extended to include all men and women who died or were captured or missing in action in any war or military activity. Since the founding of the United States, it is estimated that 560 million Americans and immigrants have lived in this country. More than 1.1 million of them have died defending the United States in the wars and combat actions since. They each have their own story to tell. The crosses at Normandy, the graves at Arlington, the markers at Punch Bowl, the 31 sets of brothers and the 3 sets of fathers on the Vietnam War. Even our War Memorial Wall back here, we have men and women that made the supreme sacrifice defending the country. And they are Walter Roberts, Stanley Slabinski, Walter Ego, James Porter, Edward Wallings, Theodore Davis, and Daniel Brady. The grief and the grief and the sacrifices of some of the families who made the supreme sacrifice is overwhelming. What a lot of people forget is that some families unfortunately have even gone through war. And I think I can speak for at least my generation, the baby boomers. We all remember the story of the Fighting Sullivans that all went down on the same ship on the same day. Also, if you're a historian buff, George Armstrong Custer, 5 of his family went down in Little Bighorn. Also, there was the 4 Borgston brothers, again, World War II, but they died at different times within 6 months, and they were the inspiration for enforcing the survival policy so that everybody wouldn't be put in the same place at the same time. And lastly, but not least, we cannot forget the 64 graduates of that high school in Philadelphia, which is Thomas Edison High. On their wall of honor, 64 people fell during the Vietnam War. So many other families have endured the agonizing, uncertain wait or fate or information of their loved ones, especially the ones that were prisoners of war or were captured and missing in action. There are so many other fallen heroes that rest in other places around the world. Lastly, and I'd like to acknowledge, because we have one here, do we have any Gold Star families? I mean, I know we have William Elligold, but I'd like to acknowledge if there's anybody else who had actually someone fall in battle. To your brother or to your family member, I salute and applaud them. I'd like to think we gather here today for them all. If one voice could speak for them, it would say, I rest in peace, you remember me. Thank you. God bless America. God bless our veterans. God bless our Gold Star families. We are now going to have the invocation. It's Sergeant Lucas Mandillo from the Army National Guard, Chaplain Assistant. No?
He does the band.
Oh, okay.
I'm at the end.
All right. Then let's have the presentation of the wreath.
You're good. Okay, for most of us, Memorial Day is one day. For Gold Star families, Memorial Day is every day. And today I just wanted to present a couple of things to you that only Gold Star families are allowed to wear. These are a set of lapel pins. You've got the Gold Star family pin, and you've got the Gold Star lapel pin here. And you should walk around, and hopefully a lot of veterans will see these, and they'll say a prayer for you and your family. Thank you. I have one more thing. This is a 250-year anniversary coin. In the early days of our country, 4,500 individuals were killed in the Revolutionary War. Since then, we are up to 640,000 individuals who have paid the ultimate price for giving us our freedom. And to put that in context, if we were doing a New York type ceremony to recognize them by name, it would take almost 1 year to read all those names. So on behalf of all of us, thank you and your family for the freedoms that you've granted us.
next guest is our special guest. And I will have one of our committee people introduce him. Deanna?
Ralph Galati. Ralph Galati was born and raised in Philadelphia. He received his Bachelor of Science degree from St. Joseph's University in Philadelphia in 1970 and was commissioned a second lieutenant in the United States Air Force. Ralph attended U.S. Air Force flight training in 1970 and received his wings in 1971. He was a weapons systems officer and forward air controller in the F-4 Phantom aircraft in Southeast Asia. On February 16, 1972, he and his pilot were shot down over North Vietnam and were immediately captured and taken to Hanoi. He spent the next 14 months as a prisoner of war. Ralph was repatriated on March 28, 1973. Ralph's military awards include the Silver Star, the Bronze Star with Valor, the Air Medal, the Air Force Commendation Medal, the Purple Heart, and the POW Medal. After his military service, Ralph worked for IBM for 28 years. He was an adjunct professor for 30 years at local universities. He was a Veterans Liaison for Delaware County. He was the founder and former director of the Office of Veteran Services at his alma mater, St. Joseph's University. He is the vice president of the Delaware County Veterans Memorial Association. Ralph has been the proud recipient of numerous awards from the City of Philadelphia, the Philadelphia Business Journal, the Marine Corps Law Enforcement Foundation, and several other community, civic, and veteran organizations. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and honored veterans, let us welcome Ralph Galati.
Freezing my ass off. Come on, it's okay. They've heard worse. Thanks to John in Vienna and to all the citizens and veterans of Warrington Township. It's really important that we put Memorial Day in perspective. It's not Veterans Day, it's not Armed Forces Day. It is really just dedicated to remember our fallen. John mentioned calling out of our Gold Star moms and Gold Star families. We can't remember you folks enough. Your sacrifice is really immeasurable. Even before the founding of Decoration Day or Memorial Day, President Lincoln talked about it in Gettysburg in 1864, and he said, "We have come to dedicate a final resting place for those who gave their lives that the nation might live. It is for us, the living, to dedicate the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to the cause for which they're here, that gave the last full measure of devotion. That we here resolve these dead shall not have died in vain." It's a message we continue to live by today. And then the following year, in his 1865 inaugural address, he actually set the tone for today's VA organization. He spoke of the need to care for him who shall have borne the battle and for his widow and his orphan. And here we are 161 years later, remembering and honoring and dedicating ourselves to this most sacred mission. You've heard some of the numbers. The U.S. casualties since the Revolutionary War, 1775, of Americans is 1.3 million. 58,000 of those in Vietnam, 655,000 in the Civil War. For those my age, God forbid that you're my age, the Vietnam War is most familiar. A couple of facts that you might not know about. The wall has 58,328 names etched on its panels. But we need to remember more than that, the impact on their families as well and their neighbors. The first casualty was Richard B. Fitzgibbons, died in June of 1956 in Vietnam. John mentioned there are 3 sets of fathers and sons on the wall. There were 31 sets of brothers, which means 31 sets of parents losing 2 sons. 70% of those that died in Vietnam were under 22 years old. Of these, about half were only 18 years old. 12 of our finest that died were 17. 5 were a mere 16 years of age, and 1, Dan Bullock, was 15. 161 were recipients of the Medal of Honor, 16 were clergy, 8 were women. The most casualties in one day was during the Tet Offensive, 254. Shockingly, 997 of the losses were killed on their first day in Vietnam. 1,448 were killed on their last day, waiting to go home. In this case, the numbers are really impactful. They have real names, real heroes behind each one. And it's important to remember how tragic the war was, especially for the very young and their families. I also always like to call attention to the missing in action. I know you have the chair here, which is really important to me. Since World War II, there were still more than 80,000 American soldiers still missing in action. That means 80,000 families are still waiting for reconciliation and for their loved ones to be returned home. There are 2 really interesting organizations. One is the Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency that still exists today. Their job is to go around the world and find the remains of our missing, to identify them, bring them home, and give them a dignified transfer to their families. Also, since 1970, there's been a group of families called the National League of Families who want to keep the message alive. 2 organizations, one government, one private, who for more than half a century will not let us forget. I want to talk about the armed forces for a second. They are our friends and neighbors. They put themselves in harm's way. It's always fascinating to figure out what they're really made of. Why do they serve? And why do they sacrifice? And to me, there's a couple of interesting quotes, not to get too biblical, but in Isaiah, it says, "Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, 'Whom shall I send? And who will go for us?' And I said, 'Here am I, send me.'" It sounds like the mission of today's military. Also in John, you've heard the familiar quote, "Greater love has no one than this, to lay down their life for their friends." Too often that actually happens in combat. My alma mater, St. Joe's. The hawk will never die, by the way. St. Ignatius of Loyola was the founder of the Jesuits. He was a soldier and a disabled veteran. And his quote was, "Go forth and set the world on fire. Act as if everything depended on you. Love is shown more in deeds than in words." Those that took action. It's all about duty, honor, and country, and selfless service. Today they represent our active duty a mere 1/2 of 1% of our total population. Yet they're the protectors, our first line of defense. I've talked about everything except my own POW experience in Vietnam. It's important to put it in perspective. Service members have died, some continue to be missing in action. Families had to endure a lot and continue to sacrifice. If you haven't had that knock on the door, the Gold Star family has. If you haven't had that knock on the door telling you about the loss of your family, you really can't appreciate what it's like. But our armed forces serve everywhere around the world. As a prisoner of war, we had one mission. It was our code of conduct. Resist to the best of your ability and return home with your honor and dignity intact. I was one of 591 Americans repatriated from Hanoi in 1973. Other POWs were there from 64. So I was there for 14 months. Some were there for more than 8 years. Every day was an endurance test of mind and body, battling demons, real and imagined, tolerating beatings, injuries, starvation, interrogations, sleep deprivation, solitary confinement, isolation. But the biggest challenge was loss of freedom. It's hard for you to imagine the loss of 100% of everything that you hold precious. Often things we take for granted. When all that you have on a daily basis is the air that you breathe, you know you're in a really bad place. When you have to beg for water and toilet paper, you're in another world. When you finally realize that your family has no idea of your status, you could be killed or missing or captured, that weighs heavily on everyday survival. And yet we endured. Sacrifice. The families made tremendous sacrifices as well. But finding ways to communicate with the other POWs that have been there for many years, we found a strength that encouraged us and allowed us to survive, even if it was just for one more day. It permitted us to resist in ways that we never thought possible as youngsters. I was 23 years old. But resist we did. In our darkest days, we would remind ourselves of Article 1 of the Code of Conduct. I'm an American fighting in the forces that guard my country and our way of life. I'm prepared to give my life in their defense. It's all about duty, honor, and country, maintaining your dignity in difficult times, battling your demons, just like our soldiers do today. It was an enormous challenge for folks in captivity. In 1972, I was one of the first POWs since 1968 because of the ceasefire. And one of our missions was to find ways to communicate with the older POWs and let them know what had been going on from 1968 to 72. We had to talk about the status of the war, who was president, the assassinations in 1968, British music invasion, the space race, lunar landings, just imagine everything we had to tell them about. But the biggest piece of news was the creation of the POW MIA flag and the bracelet campaign that started in 1970. When I was able to tell them that they had not been abandoned by their country or their government, that they had not been forgotten by the public, it was a tremendous morale boost. So today we remember and celebrate our American heroes, many from our own community. We thank God that they lived a life of service and commitment. We are the land of the free because of these brave men and women. On a personal note, I want to let you know that you are greatly appreciated. In the early 70s, when you flew our flag, when you waved the POW MIA banner, when you wore a POW bracelet, when you made your presence known in either support or protest and prayed, your efforts mattered. The message was received in POW camps across North Vietnam, and it said, "We will not abandon you." Thank you for not forgetting. Thank you, Ralph. Quite honestly, I was sitting back there listening to you and just admiring you, because I don't know if I had the guts to go through what you went through. And thank you very much. Okay. Our next speaker will be the representative from Congressman Brian Fitzpatrick. It's Kevin Bogazan. Kevin?
Good morning. Thank you all for joining us on this sacred day of remembrance and reflection. My name is Kevin Bogazan, and I'm honored to be here on behalf of Congressman Brian Fitzpatrick. While the Congressman is unable to join us in person, he sends his deepest gratitude to all of you gathered here today to honor the brave men and women who gave their lives in service for our country. Across this nation, Americans are pausing today to remember something larger than ourselves: the extraordinary courage and sacrifice of those who answer the call to defend freedom, knowing full well the cost that service could demand. Memorial Day is not simply the holiday marking the beginning of the summer. It is one of the most solemn days on our nation's calendar. It is a date set aside to honor those who never came home, the sons and daughters, fathers and mothers, brothers and sisters, friends and neighbors, who laid down their lives so that future generations could live in a better world. We are blessed to live in the United States of America, But our freedoms do not appear by accident, and they do not sustain themselves. Every generation has depended upon ordinary Americans willing to do extraordinary things in defense of this nation and the ideals upon which it was founded. And here in Bucks County, we are reminded that our community holds a special place in that story. Just miles from here in Philadelphia, our founders declared to the world that all people are created equal and endowed with God-given rights. Right here along the banks of the Delaware River, on a cold Christmas night in 1776, General George Washington and his Continental Army turned the tides of history. Those soldiers were exhausted, outnumbered, underfed, and uncertain of what the next sunrise would bring. Yet they pressed forward anyway. They risked everything, not for personal gain, but for a cause greater than themselves, the hope that their children and future generations might live free. That same spirit has carried Americans through every generation since. In that spirit, we honor the heroes whose names are etched into memorials and headstones, but also the countless others whose sacrifices live on quietly in the hearts and in their families and loved ones. We remember not only how they died, but how they lived with courage, duty, honor, and love of country. As Americans, we have a responsibility not only to remember their sacrifice, but to live lives worthy of it, to preserve the freedoms they fought for, to strengthen our communities, to serve one another, and to ensure that future generations understand that freedom is never free. So today, let us pause with gratitude. Let us remember the fallen, and let us pray for the families who carry their loss each and every day. And let us recommit ourselves to the ideas which these heroes gave everything for. May God bless our fallen heroes and all who mourn them. May God continue to bless our veterans and active service members. And may God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
We now have a representative from State Senator Ferry. Ryan?
Good morning. My name is Ryan. I'm here on behalf of Senator Frank Ferry. I'm normally here. We have, as I've said before in the past, we have Memorial Day events across the district. The senator is unable to be here and sends me on his behalf, so I'm honored to be here. It's a tough weekend for everyone, right? Just trying to think about what can I say differently. I'm not a veteran. I'm just a regular person. Eternally grateful for the veterans, but what can I say? What can I do? Earlier this year, my wife and I suffered a loss, and have kind of now become fans of signs. Not a physical sign, like this beautiful monument that represents the names of those who've served in Warrington, those who've died from Warrington. But signs, something that maybe you need when you don't know it, maybe you expect it a little bit more, and what bigger sign right now maybe than this weather for this weekend, right? This weekend's synonymous with hot dogs and barbecues and pool time. But that's not what it is. Maybe this weather is a sign from above that we all need to slow down. We all need to take a moment. We all need to remember on this 250th anniversary, 250 years of freedom, 250 years of men and women serving our country and paying the ultimate price. That's what I'm going to do. I appreciate you all. Thank you for being here. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. God bless you all. Thank you.
We now have State Legislator Brian Monroe speak.
Good morning. Looks like I have two speeches up here. Don't worry. There's just one. So I would first like to start off by thanking the Warrington Veterans Affairs Committee. You guys always do a phenomenal job with this every year, every single year. And how long has this been? How long have you guys been doing this?
Forever.
Forever? Yeah. You're not that old. I also want to thank the many volunteers that had come out here several weeks ago. If you were not part of it or if you weren't aware, that a lot of the plantings and the beautification was a lot of work and people breaking their backs and sweating and whatnot just to make this place beautiful for today. So thank you guys for all that you do. Every year I like to bring a new message to my Memorial Day ceremony speeches, and I always start by asking myself a simple question, and that is what does it mean to me? And I usually let my thoughts wander. So I first think of my own experiences. I think about both my grandfathers, who were both World War II veterans. Jesse Caudell, who fought the Japanese in the Empire in the Pacific at Guadalcanal, and my other grandfather, Lauren Monroe, who fought in Italy. In previous Memorial Day speeches, I've talked about a living history, about veterans sharing their personal stories and the importance of passing those stories down to younger generations. My grandfathers, like most veterans, especially World War II and Vietnam veterans, they didn't share many stories. But I do remember one that my grandfather had told me. I don't have that much specifics, so I don't get too excited. But from what I remember, he was assigned to carry a very large gun, and somebody in here could tell me probably what gun it is, but it was a very large gun. Again, this was World War II in Italy. It was so large he had another person assigned to him to carry the ammunition. He remembered the day that he was hit in battle. He was injured. He was down on the ground, and he remembered the moment when he looked around to see who was going to be able to save him. But at that moment, all of his buddies were pinned down. Nobody was moving. I think of the friends that I served with on the USS Theodore Roosevelt, lifelong friendships that still exist today. I think of the new friends that I've made as a state representative, members of this Veterans Affairs Committee, the folks at the VFW over there in Warminster, and the constituents that I've met along the way. But today isn't about those of us that have just served. It's about the many who have served and died in that service, and those that I will never have a chance to meet. Today is about the young man on the Roosevelt who I saw lose his life, who was crushed by a weapons elevator. Yes, it's also about those that have fought in conflicts alongside men like my grandfathers, but didn't make it home. But it's also about remembering the thousands of veterans who die every year from the scars of their service, like Agent Orange or burn pits. And it's also about those who die every year while serving in peacetime. This year, my thought kept coming back to the experience I had just 1 year ago, this very week. It was May 2025. I visited Normandy Beach in France. I walked through the museum, which is so eloquently telling the story of the thousands of young men who stormed that beachfront. The exhibits told personal stories and put you right in their boots. And upon exiting the museum doorway, you walk out into a sprawling, beautiful field covered in white Christian crosses and Jewish stars of David. And that's when it hits you. It hits you. Thousands of young Americans lying in the soil directly in front of you. Men who stormed a beach that they knew could be their last, all to preserve the freedoms of generations of people that they personally will never know. That is the honor, the commitment, the courage, and the sacrifice that we remember today. Thank you.
Our next speaker, a lot of people are probably not even aware of the work they do, but it's a high school student. She runs called Operation Eternal Gratitude, and I'm going to have Vienna Lorende introduce it. you should introduce it.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm flexible, change of program. Okay, thanks, John. Thank you very much. Several years ago, how many years ago, Elsie? 4, 3, maybe 3 years ago. I went to a veterans luncheon, and this young boy was sitting next to me. Most of the people were older, and he was really cute, and he had this big purple stripe in his hair. I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. And I said, and you're here because of your father or grandfather? He said, no, I'm here representing my school. I said, your school? He said, yeah. I said, what school is that? I had just moved here from Annapolis, Maryland. Anyway, he said, CB South High School. I said, really? He said, we have a group of students in an organization called Operation Eternal Gratitude. I'm like, wow, how many? About 270. 270 high school. I said, what do you do? He said, well, you know, we produce a really nice Veterans Day program, which, by the way, will no dry eyes. I've been there twice now. It's amazing. And he said, we also secure goods and package them and ship them to servicemen all over the world, the country and the world. I said, really? I said, well, do you have a lot of students who have relatives in the military? He said, no. I was just amazed. So he said, would you come to our school and you know, talk about your military career? I said, I'd love to. So when I did go there, several months later, I was just amazed when I met these students, these young kids, who, and many of them don't have relatives in the military, but they are so patriotic, because so many times today we hear, oh, these young kids don't really appreciate, you know, military. That is not true at CB South High School. And I have been so impressed with them, and I feel like Elsie is my step-granddaughter at this point, but at any rate, Elsie Hubbard is the president now, yes, and she's a junior. She's the president of Operation Eternal Gratitude, OEG, at CB South High School. Elsie Hubbard.
My teeth are going to start to chatter. Hi, everyone. So I wanted to start with something a little bit personal to me, to the club that I represent, Operation Eternal Gratitude. The president, I think 3 years ago, was Andy Goldberg, and he passed away recently to a health condition, but it really kind of shook our whole club because he was so young. He was like barely 20, and what I remember, I met him one time, but my brother was really good friends with him, and everyone in our club remembers him, and he was just a great, wonderful, goofy person. And what I remember about him was his absolute dedication to patriotism. And I wanted to read a little quote that we made a plaque for Andy to remember him at my school. And it goes outside the OEG meeting spot. Andy said that I do what I do because I believe that when we do acts of good, we inspire others to do the same. In doing so, we create a cycle of others helping others, because I believe when you help others, we can make the world a better place for all of us. And I think that quote really speaks to what OEG stands for. Operation Eternal Gratitude is a student-run military support club housed at CB South that works with elementary, middle school, high schools, not only in CB but in other school districts, and we are definitely very community focused. I'm also the liaison to the Veterans Affairs Committee, and we have representatives in the Rotary and all of that kind of thing, so we're very dedicated to our community. So yeah, that's what I'm here to represent, but I have a little message for us for Memorial Day. So, as the president said, a nation reveals itself not only by the people it produces, but by those it remembers. These words were said on Memorial Day nearly a decade ago, when I was only 7 years old. A lot has changed since then: politics, wars, economies, and oddly it may feel that the only constant is change. We read daily headlines about rumors, confusion, and turmoil, and sometimes it seems as though the only thing anyone can certainly agree on is that this world is uncertain. But here in America, here in Warrington, and here on Memorial Day, we have a unique opportunity to realize that not everything is uncertain. America's founding values will always remain pure and powerful and able to be remembered on Memorial Day. Liberty is unfailing. The freedom to choose our way of life will always protect the American people from fear and oppression. Freedom of speech allows us as a community and as a nation to unite, to discuss, and to understand each other. Freedom of the press gives us the special privilege to teach and learn about each other. America is a promise more than a place. It's a promise of liberties and honor. Our fallen service members ensure these freedoms for us today, right now, so that we may enjoy them forever. The youth of today are not ignorant of these liberties. The next generation remembers our fallen heroes and all of their sacrifices. They are not forgotten, and we will never allow them to be. We in America, in Bucks County, can trust in the future that Memorial Day will always be a unifying, sacred, honoring day, not for picnics, fireworks, and barbecues, not for parties, water slides, yard games, no. A day for our people, our fallen, making the ultimate sacrifice so that we may be here to appreciate the gifts they've given us, those of unending, enduring American values that we so treasure: freedom, equality, and democracy. As we gather and unite in our many causes, we are the United States of America, we the people. No matter what divides us or what obstacles we encounter, we are and always will be the people that this nation must continue preserving fundamental rights and liberties for. Memorial Day is a life of building for Americans. We build a memorial to our nation, in our communities, and in our own hearts to remember those who have sacrificed for us. We build new opportunities for people today to help service members, such as Operation Eternal Gratitude does. We create new scenes to commemorate their invaluable service and their immeasurable impact. We construct beautiful spaces for our youth, parents, and elderly to always remember what our people have done for us. We are able to make Memorial Day every day. They sacrifice so that we may enjoy our opportunities, our liberties, our equalities, and our rights. And most importantly, our democracy. Memorial Day will not be lost on the youth of America. We will always remember it, and we will always further our commitment to those serving today. As the same president continued, a nation reveals itself not only by the people it produces, but by those it remembers. We do so not just by hoisting a flag, but by lifting our neighbors. Not just by pausing in silence, but by practicing in our own lives the ideals of opportunity and liberty and equality that they fought for. Let us reveal our nation as one that honors and remembers those who sacrificed for it. Let our nation reveal itself by producing a new generation of people who will uphold those sacred memories and those sacred memorials. Let our nation continue to raise its head high in the victorious sacrifices of its warriors. This is our nation, and these are our warriors. We must decide to honor them in a way they deserve, to honor our nation and our warriors today the way they deserve. Thank you.
Warrington would not have a wall for memorials that we have right now. The Rotary was one of the instrumental forces that pushed this. So I'm going to have the chairman or chairperson of the Warrington Board of Supervisors to acknowledge and speak about the wall. Vanessa Mallon.
Thank you everyone for coming and braving the weather today. As many Warrington residents, you may not know the remarkable history of our own war memorial. Its vision, its construction, and the continued dedication that keeps its purpose alive through the work of our Veterans Affairs Committee. The original honor roll recognizing those who served and died in World War II was first dedicated in 1943. That's when we started this. As a wooden structure. Years later, it was carefully preserved until a permanent location could be selected. Here, in 2005, a letter from Dennis Igo to the Board of Supervisors proposed creating a lasting tribute, one that would include a granite marker and a bronze memorial plates honoring Igo, Wellings, and Porter, beside a new flagpole and a memorial site. Right here behind us. That same year, Ruth Zeiner, then the president of the Warrenton Rotary Club, is Ruth here? Recognized a unique opportunity. As Rotary International celebrated the centennial, clubs around the world were challenged to create a permanent projects that would honor and strengthen their communities. Warrenton Rotary answered that call by envisioning a living memorial dedicated to the residents of Warrenton who served in the defense of our nation's values, freedoms. From that vision, the War Memorial was born. Former Township Supervisor John Paul helped inspire the site's location, ensuring the memorial would preserve the same honored names and history as the original wooden marker. With a construction cost of $25,000, countless Rotarians contributed their time, talent, and resources to design, build, and landscape the monument, while engineering services were generously provided by CKS. Then on May 23, 2012, Warrenton Township inducted a record 40 local veterans into the new War Memorial, adding their names to the fellow heroes who served across the branch of every United States Armed Forces. That legacy continues today. As each memorial ceremony conducted by Warrenton Veterans Affairs Committee ensures brave residents are never forgotten. This sacred place of remembrance and ceremonies that continue here would not exist without the extraordinary vision, generosity, and hands-on contribution of the Warrenton Veterans Committee and the Warrenton Rotary Club. Their commitment to an idea into Warrenton's oasis of remembrance. For that, the township rightfully issued a special proclamation of gratitude on May 23, 2012, honoring Rotary's leadership in creating this eternal memorial. As the daughter and granddaughter of a Marine, this tribute is deeply personal to me. But it's also deeply meaningful to me as the chair of Warrenton Township Board of Supervisors and as a proud member of Warrenton Rotary, an organization rooted in service above self, to stand here today in a place built through community vision, volunteerism, and patriotism, and to honor the men and women who defended our freedoms, and truly one of the greatest privileges of public service. I understand the sacrifices military families make. Not only those who serve, but the loved ones who wait, who pray, who carry on while the freedom is defended. My grandfather was one of those extraordinary Americans. A United States Marine, he served in 3 wars, World War II, Korea, and 3 tours in Vietnam. He was in the first wave of Marines to come onto Iwo Jima, and he was one of only 6 survivors. From his unit that day, his final tour in Vietnam, he was severely wounded by a landmine, sustaining injuries to his leg, his hip, and his abdomen. And yet, despite surviving some of history's most brutal battles, he rarely spoke of his sacrifices. Like so many veterans, he would simply say, "I am no hero." The real heroes are those who fought and gave their lives. He died at the age of 93, a true American patriot, and grateful not for medals or recognition, but for the blessing of watching his children and grandchildren grow up in the country he fought to defend. And that's the heart of Memorial Day. It is more than a long weekend and a backyard barbecues and parades and ceremonies. It is a sacred reminder that our freedoms were purchased at an extraordinary cost. So as we gather with family this week, and let us do so with gratitude. Let us remember those who never made it home and those who still serve today, and the families who carry the weight of that service, because freedom from fear and the ability for us to gather openly, raise our children, and enjoy the blessings of this nation, those are not ordinary privileges. I wear this little lapel pin, and I know some of you have it as well, and it says, "Home of the free because of the brave." And those are simple words, but they capture the truth of why we gather here today. The freedoms we enjoy every day are not guaranteed. They were defended by brave young men and women willing to sacrifice everything for this nation, for each of us to be here today. They are gifts secured by extraordinary Americans. May we never forget them. May we honor them not only for their words, but for their lives and for their sacrifice. So today, I also have the solemn privilege of adding another name to the Warrington Township Wall of Honor. While his family has not chosen to speak publicly today, they have graciously shared some details about their loved one's life and service so that we may recognize and remember his contributions to our country. William J. Spanier. He served in the United States Marine Corps during the Korean War, which was from 1951 to 1953. He was a longtime Warrington resident, and he was a devoted family man. Is his family here? They may not want to speak. Like so many of his generation, he answered the call to serve, not for recognition, but out of duty to country and love of freedom. Today, Warrington Township observes that his service and sacrifice will never be forgotten. On behalf of the Board of Supervisors, the Veterans Affairs Committee, and a grateful community, it is our honor to officially add William J. Spanier, Warrington Township War Memorial. May his legacy live on for generations to come.
It's been a tradition for quite a while here that we usually end up with our Warrington poet, and he is here today. Larry Bullitt, please step up with his daughter. She'll be accompanying him doing the poetry.
Lady with the baby moving through here.
If we have occasion to chat afterwards, please talk loud. I only am using one eye.
One eye.
Good. Memorial Day is a day of bands and banners, oratory and story, flowers and flags, meals and deals, prayer and purpose. But above all, it's a day to reflect and remember.
Remember me when the candlelights are gleaming. Remember me at the close of a long, long day. It'll be so sweet when the innocence of dreaming, just to know you still
There's an hour in the deepest of the night, just before the dawn, where they say, sleeping dogs won't wake. I came out of a sound sleep at such an hour and decided it must be the same time of night when muses flit around. I abruptly awoke, went to my writing table with the name Lawson Dean in my head. I never knew a Lawson Dean in my life. I scurried the internet, couldn't find anyone named Lawson Dean, but it was there in my head, and I wrote of it. And when I was done writing, I had to read what I had written to find out what I wrote. Because I was just an instrument by something greater than myself that wanted me to tell the story of Lawson Dean. And I could. How was it that you came to us, Lawson Dean? Lawson Dean? Had you been the stuff of gods or merely mortal, or something more a dream? So I wrote this long story, and I'm not going to read it, because it's time for resolution. We lost Lawson Dean to enemy fire, and suffered with his loss for years. Once safe home in civilian life, I wore his bracelet, the MIA bracelet with his name on it. Last winter we had that event in our nighttime sky in December with the moon and Jupiter. I thought of Lawson Dean and the war and the loss, and I started to get that angst that comes with recalling those memories. And I stepped outside for some fresh air and looked up at the nightly heavens. And there above me, the moon, full, bright, silent, hung with some majesty, such serenity. Well, yes, of course, like the shepherd watching his flock by night. And just below Jupiter, a great jewel like a precious pendant to enhance Luna's beauty. And it was then that a great calm came over me. A great calm, easy like a spring breeze over sweet grass. Settling easy the way a new mother covers her sleeping babe. Easy the way twilight just settles at the end of a summer day. Easy like the sigh of an angel's breath. The way the first flakes of lazy snow find the earth beneath. And with that calm came some understanding. Perhaps even a touch of knowledge. You can call that Jupiter if you want. But I think I know better. Yeah. I think I know better now. Don't I, Lawson Dean?
Remember me when the candlelights are gleaming. Remember me at the close of a long, long day. And it'll be so sweet when the innocents are dreaming. Know you're still remembered.
At this time, within the audience, please stand if you had any relatives were veterans that had passed away in the last year. Please be acknowledged. Gotta get some taller people, shorter people here. I don't know what's going on. I think I have to get down a little lower. Okay. But like I said, we normally take this as a moment for veterans and their relatives, especially the veterans that are no longer with us. So we'd like to acknowledge them today. With our band, please, would you please play the melody of service renditions? closing ceremonies with the benediction from Sergeant Lucas.
It's a little chilly. So I'm going to follow the three, whoops, you got the short guide. I'm going to follow the 3 B's of public speaking. Be nice, be brief, and be seated. Before I introduce our closing speaker, I just wanted to note that since I joined this organization, I have felt that Warrington is the most military-friendly town in this entire area. You can start with, despite the weather today, we've got a lot of great patriots from this area who came out and supported us. If you look at the Operation Eternal Gratitude team over at Central Bucks South, they put out 10,000 pounds of care packages to 170,000 deployed service members every year. Next week, we're going to do yet another ceremony where we welcome 10 of the students from Central Bucks South into service to the nation. If you look at the challenge of finding people who meet the standards of getting into the service, it's pretty tough. 70% of those eligible to enter the service don't meet the standards of character, of academic talent, and of physical fitness. And we've got in this little community 10 of our students who are entering the service. And we will put on a ceremony worthy of what they are doing. So I really want to thank everyone in this community for all that they do for our service members and our veterans every year. And we will keep doing the things we can to keep earning the support you're giving us. You can clap. Okay, I have the honor of introducing our closing speaker. When Vienna and I joined this team, we said, we really want to make sure that we have a young person, a superstar in our community at every one of our events, so that the people in our community realize the outstanding young folks that we have. And we got another one today. And he didn't just make it here easily today. He wanted to bring his wife. His wife wanted to be here to support him. There was just a little complication. She was in Chicago. And we all know how great the airline service is now. Her plane was supposed to land at 1 o'clock this morning. She landed at 9 o'clock this morning. And he probably got about a dozen tickets getting here today. But his bride wanted to be here and to support him. There is something unique about the military, and that's family support. None of us can deploy without great family support. Family support is our secret weapon, and we are just so proud of all of our families. Personally, a lot of us feel that the families earn the medals and we get to wear them. And I thank his bride for coming here today. And we have a couple things for you before you leave. First of all, you probably don't know it, but by marrying this guy, you met the congressional requirements for becoming a family support person and a Blue Star family member. And this is something unique that we developed in Warrington. It is a certificate of honor for Blue Star family members, and we will be presenting that to you before you leave today. You can clap for her. I need somebody behind me with those cards. Clap. Anyway, I am proud to introduce Sergeant Lucas Bello. He's a member of the Pennsylvania National Guard. He started as a warrior, a combat engineer, and he is transitioning now. He is currently a chaplain's assistant in his unit. And I would like you all to welcome him as he gives the closing prayer.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of my fellow service members, thank you for your support, and more importantly, thank you for your prayers. Those who we honor today stood their watch, performed their duties faithfully and honorably, and paid the ultimate price. Today, by our presence at this event, we fulfill our duty to them. We offer our respect, we remember and honor them. May the strength of God sustain us. May the power of God preserve us. May the hand of God protect us. May the way of God direct us. May we live our lives worthy of sacrifices of those we honor today. May our gratitude never fade, and may our lives reflect the freedoms we have been granted. Lord, we thank you for the brave souls who gave their lives for our freedoms. Comfort their families, and let us never forget their sacrifices. Guide us to live our lives with the courage, self-sacrifice, and honor and integrity demonstrated by those we honor today. There is great value in this day if the words, the feelings, the patriotism, and emotions we experienced become rooted in your hearts as you travel home. I have decided that the best and most appropriate way to end my part in this event is to have it done by you. When you fire up the grill or pop open a beverage later today, say one last brief prayer for the American heroes we honor today and their families. God bless those who made the ultimate sacrifice for our nation and their Gold Star families. God bless each of you, and God bless America.
Present this as a 100-year anniversary coin of the 79th American Legion Post. And it has on the front the guy who suffered the first casualties in the building of America, George Washington crossing the Delaware.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That concludes our event. Thank you all for coming, especially in a day like today. So greatly appreciate it. God bless you all.